Hey, today's video is the culmination of 3 videos. The first one I released 2 years ago and the last one 1 year ago. So the whole reason I'm doing this is for 2 reasons. One of the theories that I proposed actually got proven correctly in the most recent manga chapter. And 2, it's more relevant than ever. The first one I released got a good amount of views. The next one I released also got a good amount of views. And the third one I released didn't get as much reviews, which in my opinion, the third one is the best, the most original one. So what I'm going to do is cut down what is either redundant or irrelevant so that the videos go by quicker. You can watch all 3 in one sitting. Also, in between each part, I'll give an updated take on the theory. There's not too much to update, and that's just how good the theory is. It's pretty solid throughout. So let's talk about the first one, law being in sword. That is not the most original theory, which I didn't intend to copy anybody. Just the theory makes itself. It's just a really easily craftable theory because Drake's involvement with Law and Kobe and whatnot. The whole reason I'm even putting in this video is because it sets up the other Law video. So if you haven't seen that video, or if you need a refresher, here you go. Is Law a part of Sword? I believe at the very least Trafalgar Law is affiliated with Sword, and at the most he is actually a member of the organization. The thing that might make someone weary of Law being a possible member of Sword is that he isn't the type that would want to be involved with the Marines. I could see why one would take that stance, considering that the world government is responsible for the death of Law's family and entire town. However, consider this, when Kobe and Drake spoke of CP0 and Wano, they seemed to be fearful of the implications. First off, the members of Sword seem to have an inherent distrust of Cypherpole, and by extension, the world government. And secondly, even the world government's top intelligence agency isn't aware that Drake is in Sword. So even if Law had a grudge against the world government, it may actually be to his benefit to be a part of Sword, especially if they themselves might turn on the world government someday. Stick around all the way to the end to see my speculation on the objective of Sword. Law asked Drake, "How many people have you killed?" This either implies that Drake has a number so high that he has been on some murderous rampage, or that he has a number so low that it's unusual for a pirate. It's probably the latter, and this could be a foreshadow to Law knowing that Drake is an undercover Marine. Both are from the North Blue, and they were both on Minion Island on the same fateful day. Their destinies have crossed once before, so it wouldn't be surprised if Law, as a pirate in his early days, had run-ins with Drake as a Marine. Ever since the jailbreak, Law has been acting kinda suspicious. The way Oda has been drawing him lately just seems shady to me. If Law decides to go along with Sword, then you'll know why he has been acting weird in hindsight. Or maybe he has always been working with Sword. They could have helped Law become a Shichibukai. There are currently 2 known members of Sword. As I said earlier, Law and Drake may have history from their time in the North Blue. However, Law just so happens to have past ties to the one other known member, Kobe. Oda mentioned the mysterious Rocky Port incidents once in chapter 700 with very little information, and then decided to mention it again 203 chapters later, giving no new information besides the fact that Kobe was the hero of that incident. It's almost as if the only reason that incident exists within the grand story is to mention it in order to set up a connection between Law and Kobe. From that incident, Law was able to become a warlord, and Kobe may have even been promoted from that incident, or at least just got some good rep. Neither Kobe or Drake strike me as the leader of Sword. Could there be a founder or higher ranking member that could also be responsible for Law's inclusion within Sword? Sengoku and Law seem to have a docile relationship in Dressrosa. Since from the time that Law was a child, Sengoku has been aware of him. Sengoku didn't know Law by name at first, but if some kid pops up as the captain of the Heart Pirates using the Opi Opi no Mi, then it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure out that Law is the child Rosinante sacrificed his life for. Sengoku saw Rosinante as a son, and Corazon paid the love and kindness forward towards Law. It's possible Sengoku could see Law as a grandson, and carrying on the will of Rosinante. He could have been pulling some strings to help Law out. When Law escaped from the jail in Wano, he didn't seem surprised. It's almost as if he expected it or has been in similar situations before. Doflamingo may have become a warlord, but Sengoku knows the true extent of Dofi's wickedness. I'm sure he held a grudge against Doflamingo, thus would want to see him taken down in the name of justice and for his personal satisfaction. Perhaps he knew Law wanted the same thing, so he's been doing what he can to help Law take down Doflamingo. The question is, how much is Law invested in Sword? I'm not very inclined to believe that Law is an undercover Marine. However, that would continue the trend of Corazons being double agents. Virgo was a Marine that was secretly a pirate, and Rosinante was a pirate that was secretly a Marine. However, it's hard to believe that Law would become a Marine given what the world government did to his family and hometown. I think if he could keep a safe distance as a pirate, he would be willing to join a sect of the Marines if they aligned with his goals and values. One thing to remember is that the Marines and the world government aren't exactly the same thing. Even Fleet Admiral Akainu poses the world government at times, which, if you remember, Sengoku ordered Akainu to be a rebel Marine during the Battle of Marineford. And as many have pointed out, he has a tattoo of a sword. Possible foreshadow? Anyway, let's talk about the most important person in Law's life. Rosinante is someone that Law looks up to above all else. He named his pirate crew after him and even wore clothes in tribute to Kora. Given that the person he looked up to most is someone that is a Marine, it shouldn't be too much of a stretch to think that Law would be willing to work with Marines that were as good of people as Kora. Even so, Rosinante didn't have blind faith in the Marines. He was willing to screw them over and steal the Oppi Oppi no Mi for Law's sake. So, if you question the likelihood of Law trusting Sword, just remember, Law is someone that knows despite how evil the world government can be, there are good Marines that are even willing to rebel against the world government. Law may truly be a pirate, but under the right circumstances is willing to work alongside Sword. You could think of him as Sword's personal Shichibukai. Now that concludes the theory, just talking about Law being a part of Sword. And really, is it all that bad in the end? What if Law being a part of Sword means that he doesn't want the One Piece, and that he won't have to be rivals and enemies with Luffy in the future? Well, actually, the exact opposite might be true. Law's inclusion in Sword and his desire for the One Piece might be connected. Check out part 2 of this theory, in which I go over what I believe is the goal of Law and Sword. In addition to that, why I believe the Revolutionary Army has a role to play in this. So yeah, that was my take on Law being a part of Sword. One thing I've seen when I compared it to other people's Law being a part of Sword is that they seem more inclined to just say Law is a Sword member, which my theory video is that no, I don't think Law is a Sword member, because for him to be a Sword member, he pretty much would have to be a Marine. I don't think he's a Marine. I think he truly is a pirate, and there's no espionage there. The next theory is a big reason why this whole video is being made in the first place, in which I say I believe that Saul is alive. Now, if the theory is already proven correctly, do you even need to watch the video? Well, I think you should, because it wasn't just about Saul being alive. I also show evidence of why I think Aokiji are in Sword and what involvement Robin has. So check out this next one. To start this theory, we must first talk about his good friend Kuzan, aka Aokiji. Many speculate he could be a member of Sword, and for good reason. He left the Marines and is now working with the Yonko, practically the same thing Drake has done. We all know he has morals and is on friendly terms with Marines like Smoker, Garp, and Sengoku. What this tells us is that there's no way he would actually want to affiliate with Blackbeard, and it's just undercover. Another thing that makes me think he could be a part of Sword is his attire before and after being an admiral. There seems to be a standard dress code for being an admiral. Fujitora clearly wears something unconventional, but that matches his overtly rebellious nature. When Kuzan was an admiral, the way he dressed fitted in with the other admirals, so that tells me that he didn't really choose his outfit naturally as he would. However, after being an admiral, we got to see what he chooses to freely wear. It actually looks like what he wore as a vice admiral, which means he clearly had more liberty in what he chose to wear as a Marine before becoming an admiral. I say all of this to point out that despite the color theme of the Marines being vastly white, Kuzan wore mostly black. This concept of using black colored Marine apparel is actually quite reminiscent of Drake's pirate ship, which happens to be a recolored Marine ship. I believe this points to Kuzan possibly being a part of SWORD even as far back as the destruction of Ohara. That reason is trivial compared to my next point. Kuzan was willing to commit an act of treason back then. Although Jaguar D. Saul tried his best, it was truly Kuzan that allowed Robin to escape, and he even then proceeded to look after her from that point on, even going as far as to spare her life many times despite her being a pirate. Robin is one of the most dangerous individuals alive in the eyes of the world government, so then why would Kuzan do that? Is it simply because his friend Jaguar risked his life for Robin? I don't think so. His allegiance to SWORD may be more than his obedience to the world government. If Kuzan was willing to spare Robin, why kill someone he cares about? The most logical answer is that he wanted to kill Saul before the Marines got their hands on his friend. Or perhaps he killed Saul so that the Marines and the world government would think he is dead. Was Jaguar D. Saul's death fake, and what could that mean for the story going forward? Before getting to that, let's explore a related hypothetical. Was Jaguar D. Saul a member of SWORD before or after his supposed death? I think it could be just as likely to go either way. Jaguar is incredibly moral and even has the D initial. I think he would fit right in with SWORD. However, he could be a bit too outspoken and rebellious, which I could see as being a problem for a secret organization such as SWORD. SWORD members probably have to bite their tongue when the world government orders the Marines to do the cruel and unusual. I believe that Sengoku is a high-ranking member of SWORD and possibly even the leader. He chose Jaguar for this mission because he had a plan. That plan was to have people on the inside of the Buster Call operation try to allow some of the scholars of Ohara to survive and escape. However, even if Jaguar was a member of SWORD when ordered to initiate the Buster Call against Ohara, he may have felt the need to quit as he couldn't sacrifice Ohara for the sake of keeping his rebellion a secret. He wouldn't go as far as to blow all of SWORD's cover, but he couldn't just sit by and watch the massacre. So did Kuzan allow Robin to live and escape because of Jaguar? I theorize that it was truly the plan of SWORD all along. It may not have been Robin specifically that was planned to have survived and escaped, however, that is how things panned out. Now, regardless of whether or not Saul was a member of SWORD before his death, I do think he definitely is a member after. We all witnessed Kuzan free Saul, but does that automatically mean that Saul is dead? We have already seen people get their entire bodies frozen and survive. Now let's get into the semantics of the names of Kuzan's techniques. Ice Age can be seen as a double entendre. It not only refers to freezing the person due to cold temperature, but the age part could refer to being frozen in time. Then there is the move used on Saul, Ice Time Capsule. No double entendres required. It's quite straightforward. It's literally a move meant to freeze something in time. A time capsule is something that is only meant to be sealed away at one point and unsealed later at another point. It's been in our faces the whole time. I speculate that Kuzan froze Saul to get him off of the world government's radar. At a later point, unfroze him. If Saul wasn't a member of SWORD before being unfrozen, then that was the moment he was recruited. In order to get Saul to keep himself and SWORD a secret, then they would have to reassure him that Robin is alive and taken care of. In conclusion, Saul is alive and a member of SWORD. I believe this means we will see Robin have a closer connection to SWORD than expected. I anticipate that at some point SWORD will save Robin from their rival known as Cypher Pole Aegis Zero. And at that point we will see a heartfelt reunion between Robin and Saul. In my opinion, this should be more expected when you consider the similarities between SWORD and the Revolutionary Army. We already know Robin is close to the Revolutionary Army, and whether she is aware of it or not, SWORD may have her best interest in mind as well. In fact, in a prior theory of mine, I speculate that Law could be affiliated with Sword, and I have a related upcoming theory that Law is affiliated with the Revolutionary Army. So, in the latest chapters we find out Saul is alive, but we also find out something interesting about Dragon, is that he was a part of this group called the Freedom Fighters. And that's interesting for two reasons. One, in this next video, I literally call Law a freedom fighter. So it's just a cool coincidence. And two, the fact that it has a different name than the Revolutionary Army, which just goes to show that maybe there was a group called the Freedom Fighters, and the Freedom Fighters may have split up and became two different groups. Maybe the Revolutionary Army and Sword. And this could be even hinted at in the chapter in which Vegapunk says to Dragon, "I thought you preferred peace," or something along those lines. So maybe Revolutionary Army went the path of declaring war against the world government, whereas Sword is trying to basically overthrow the Celestial Dragons, but in a peaceful way. So last but also the best, let's check out the third final video. In the first part, I went over how it is that Law could possibly be a part of the organization known as Sword. Just to give a quick summary, Sword seems to be the good guys, and Law also seems to be a good guy, or at least Luffy believes so. There is an issue though. Sword is composed of Marines, and Law has bad history with the world government. My theory proposes that Sword is also against the world government. Not only that, but current and potential members of Sword have strong connections to Law, especially Corazon. Now with us all caught up, let's take this theory into another direction. Think about this. If Sword was a group meant to rebel against the world government, well, then shouldn't that make them likely allies of the Revolutionary Army? Well, if you consider that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, then it does make sense. The organization is called Sword. Meanwhile, the Revolutionary Army is rivals with CP0, or should I say Aegis Zero. Aegis, if you don't know, is a shield. Thematically, Sword would also be rivals with CP0. I suppose it begs the question, could a portion of the Marines be accepting of the Revolutionary Army, and vice versa? Well, don't forget who Monkey D. Dragon's father is. It's likely that Dragon was in the Marines early in his life. Perhaps Dragon is aware of Sword's existence and goal. Maybe he was a part of the group, or he could be an active member. What if he even created Sword? Whatever it may be, the thing that matters is that they have some kind of connection, and this is significant to Law in particular. The first Corazon was an undercover pirate, and the second was an undercover Marine. What if the third is an undercover revolutionary? First, think about his past. Who better to be a part of the Revolutionary Army than the kid whose entire town, including his family, was cruelly massacred by the world government? Kind of like Robin. Aokiji is someone that I and many others suspect to be a member of Sword, and he spared Robin's life multiple times. He felt responsible not only for her, but for Luffy and his crew. Think about it. Aokiji took issue with the fact that Robin would betray pirates. Pirates of all people. Pirates are the enemies of the Marines. Wouldn't that mean that Robin being a part of the downfall of many pirate crews is actually a good thing for Aokiji's side? When I really put some thought to it, Aokiji has done many things as an admiral that didn't seem rational for someone who had the world government's best interest in mind. However, his actions would make sense if he was someone collaborating with Sword and or the revolutionaries. However, I say all this to point out that it is possible that Robin has been on Sword's radar since she became the infamous Devil Child. In part 1 of this theory, I implied that Sword may have been supporting Law with or without his knowledge, and the same could be true for Robin. The Cypher Pole are a threat to Robin, so it would be on theme for the rival of Aegis to be protective of Robin, although I can never see Robin being an actual member of Sword. If it weren't for the fact that Robin was still part of the Straw Hats crew, she would have definitely stayed with the Revolutionary Army. But she's better off a pirate because she can read the poneglyphs and go to Laugh Tale. In chapter 996, Robin and Law are seen talking to each other. He even tells her his family's secret. Is the possible connection between Sword and the Revolutionary the reason for their closeness? If we really get into the semantics of this conversation, there are two things to make note of. First off, let's talk about Law saying, "You are the only one I would tell this." Now, he could be saying that because Robin is a Straw Hat. However, I find that unlikely. It would be more befitting to say, "I'm only telling you this because we're allied," or straight up just because you are a Straw Hat. Not only that, but look at where they are at. They appear to be in a secluded area with no one else around. I believe he's specifically telling Robin because they have a secret connection. And I believe it involves Sword, the Revolutionary Army, and possibly even Tequila Wolf. But more on that later. The second thing to make note of is that he says, "I've made up my mind." And if you recall in part 1 of this theory, I said it is possible that when Drake freed Law, he didn't know for sure Law was going to be on the side of Sword. It's possible that even though Law wasn't officially a part of Sword, Drake knew that Law had reasons to want to side with them, making it worth the gamble. That could also be a big reason why Law is a pirate. In the Sabaody arc, we are introduced to Law, the Celestial Dragons, Rayleigh, and much more. I believe this was Oda setting the stage for the endgame of One Piece. I say this because when Rayleigh started vaguely explaining what to expect when finding the One Piece, he tells Robin it is something that will provide answers. We learn that Roger was too early for what he discovered. Whatever the treasure on Laugh-Tale is, it has to do with the Void Sentry and ancient weapons, all things that the world government is against. It's almost as if they fear what finding the One Piece could result in. By the way, I have a video speculating why it is Roger was laughing at the One Piece. Check it out if you have the time. But back to this theory. Think about it. If we were to believe that the One Piece will somehow be involved in helping take down the Celestial Dragons and save the world, then wouldn't it only make sense that the Revolutionary Army would be interested in it as well? Law's true objective may be to ensure that the good guys get their hands on the One Piece. Now here's the biggest stretch of the theory. What if Rosinante is still present in the story? Karasu is from the North Blue, just like Law and Rosinante. He wears black feathers and even has a quirk about him that both shows how oblivious he can be and how quiet he is. In fact, Karasu's tendency to mute could be a direct callback to Corazon's time in the Don Quixote crew, as well as a reference to the silent powers of the Calm fruit. Speaking of devil fruits, you might be wondering how it is that he can have a crow devil fruit ability when he already has the Calm fruit. Well, what if he truly did die but was revived? The mask he's wearing could be helping keep his body alive. He'd be like Anakin Skywalker after he became Darth Vader. With that in mind, perhaps he lost his devil fruit and gained a new one. Either that or his crow ability isn't his devil fruit and he is phantasmal. He is the spirit of Rosinante, taking form through the use of crows. Crows are symbolic of death. In fact, have you ever heard of the comic book series known as The Crow? Okay, first off, he eerily looks similar to Corazon. Secondly, in the story, the main character named Eric dies, then comes back to life due to crow magic, or whatever. My point is that Oda might have incorporated some inspiration from that story into One Piece. The whole reason I say any of this is to present another possible connection between Law, Sword, and the Revolutionary Army. Given all these connections, it would explain why Law was so adamant on saving Luffy. We already know he's interested in the will of D. In addition, whether it be through his feelings towards good-natured marines like Garp, or those that rebel against the world government like Dragon, Law felt that Monkey D. Luffy as their child was someone worth risking the lives of him and his crew for. Perhaps Law was looking for a failsafe. If he didn't get the One Piece first, he would like Luffy to claim the treasure, in hopes that he would one day take down the Celestial Dragons. Something he could feel worth believing in after he witnessed what Luffy and his crew did to the Celestial Dragons at the auction house. With all that being said, when you consider that Law could be a member of Sword or the Revolutionary Army, it really puts into question his goals as a pirate. Because like Luffy, he desires and appreciates freedom. Here's something I'm surprised people don't discuss more. We all know that most big-name pirates want what's on Laugh-Tale, but what if there are Marines that want the One Piece? I mean, just think about it. Anyone, not just pirates, would be interested in what the One Piece is. However, beyond curiosity is the distrust some might have for the world government. I find it hard to believe that a Marine has never asked the question, why don't we just find the One Piece before the pirates do? It makes sense. Not only would it help prevent the pirates from finding the One Piece, but also they'd be prepared to protect the treasure if Laugh Tale were to be found. However, world government forbids it and wants the One Piece to never be found. This could make some Marines distrustful of the world government. Perhaps a group was founded with the purpose of finding the One Piece behind the world government's back. Maybe there are members of the world government that have an inkling as to what the One Piece may be and plan on doing something with what they find on Laugh Tale. Here's the thing, Marines have often been portrayed as villains, however not all Marines are bad guys. Many want justice. In fact, even Akainu, as cruel as he is, does seem to genuinely want justice. As warped as his definition of justice is, he ultimately wants to rid the world of evil. Then you have characters like Garp, Suru, and Sengoku. They seem to be really good for the most part. Unfortunately, their good deeds are tarnished by the fact that they work for the world government, aka Celestial Dragons. Working for and protecting people that enslave others makes them evil by association. It's hard to believe that the good Marines want to turn a blind eye to evil deeds of the Celestial Dragons. Maybe they not only want to do something about it, but are in the process of getting it done. Unlike the pirates that just seem to recklessly do whatever they want, or the revolutionaries that are trying to start a war to take power from the world government, this group of rebel Marines, aka Sword, could be trying to take down the world government silently from the inside. In fact, it's possible that the Revolutionary Army doesn't truly intend to go to war with the world government, and their true purpose is to be a distraction and wait until Sword gets their opportunity to turn the tides in their favor. I mean really, when you look at what they're up against, there's no way the Revolutionary Army could take on the world government head on. Now what is it that they want to do that could save the world from their tyrannical rulers? I believe law is the clue. Look at his Jolly Roger, and the tattoos on him and his crew. Isn't there something familiar looking about them? The symbol on the Heart Pirates looks like the world government symbol. The reason the world government symbol looks the way that it is because it represents the north, west, east, and south blue, with the grand line being the circle in the middle. Given that context, what could the symbol shown on the Heart Pirates represent? Well, it seems that instead of the separate seas, it is all one piece. It could represent the all blue. Sword's main objective may be to eliminate whatever is preventing all the seas from connecting. Meri-Joie is one of two places where all four seas could meet, and if their goal is to take down the Celestial Dragons, well then it makes sense that their target would be their homeland. Not only that, but I suggest you check out the theory on Tequila Wolf by Joy Boy. Thank you to my friend Amir for pointing this out to me. If you look at the world government symbol, it isn't exactly true that the four seas in the grand line is separate. You can see the four lines connecting the five circles. As theorized by Joy Boy, the Celestial Dragon's ultimate goal is to connect the world through a bridge controlled entirely by them. This works perfectly with my theory for two reasons. One, it once again connects Robin to this because she was once at Tequila Wolf and knows of the mistreatment and injustice that is found there. Both Robin and Law may share an understanding of the threat a bridge like this would pose and have a mutual desire to have the bridge not completed. The bridge isn't even a bad thing, it's not like a border. It's more the fact of who's ordering it to be made and also that it is a product of slave labor. Law may even anticipate the bridge being used against pirate ship, hence why he has a submarine that could go under the bridge. The topic of ships at sea brings me to my second point. The use of a bridge can make it so that the Marines aren't as needed. One of the reasons World Nobles needs the Marines is because they desire to be at Meri-Joie as much as possible. This means that despite that they want to control all the territories within the world, they don't want to reside on any land besides Meri-Joie. Thus they need an outside force to set up strongholds across the globe. However, with a bridge that connects across the four seas, they can set up a stronghold directly connected to Meri-Joie. With that, they wouldn't need battleships or the Marines as much. This means even the Marines could have motive to not want to see this bridge completed. Also, despite the fact that the world government owns the Marines, they do have their own ships to travel the sea. By the time the Marines would realize they are obsolete, it'll most likely be too late. That's why people who see the world government for the evil that they are will be necessary in preventing the world government from becoming too powerful. Perhaps Law doesn't want the One Piece for the sake of being the greatest pirate, but as a moral obligation. Some may claim that this is out of character for Law, but first consider once again how similar his backstory is to Robin's. It wouldn't be too surprising for someone like him to be a freedom fighter. Not only that, but let's look at his character thematically. He's a doctor, so it's only expected he would be inclined to be a fixer and healer. Perhaps curing the whole world of the disease that is the world government and the viruses that are the celestial dragon. What I propose is that Law wants to open up the world that is being constricted by the borders formed by the Red and Grand Line. The concept of borders and lack thereof are significant to Law and his backstory. Law was born in a country known as Flevance. Another name given was the White Town. This is because this town was notable for mining white lead. Unfortunately, white lead had an awful effect on the citizens. They were poisoned by the very thing they were mining, hence they got white lead disease. Here's something I want to make a quick note of. The headquarters of the Revolutionary Army is known as Baltigo, which is also known as the Island of White Soil. It might be connected to this, but at the very least, it's an interesting coincidence. You would think it would have been the white lead disease that killed all the citizens of Flevance, or at least that is what the world government would like you to believe. You see, it wasn't the white lead disease that eliminated Law's country. It was the border created by humans. They suffered from the disease, and instead of their neighbors and the world government helping, they instead created a border and killed anyone that tried to escape. The citizens of Flevance wanted to leave anyway, so they armed themselves and tried to escape, which then led the outside countries to be threatened by their desire for freedom. So in retaliation, the bordering countries, with the help of the world government, proactively eliminated the threat by entering Flevance and killing everyone. His family and country died in hopes they could be free of their country's border and suffering. Law's desire to make the world free could be something he does not just for himself, but for the sake of his fallen country. Law has shown he cares about others early in the story when he freed one of the Celestial Dragon's slave and invited him to become a part of his crew. His devil fruit is one of the best when it comes to helping other people. The concept of law versus border is even present in his devil fruit. You know, the power literally called room. The smaller the room, the more confined he is, the less free he is. Making the room bigger is not only more powerful, but grants Law more liberty. I believe the apex of Law's power would be if he could use it without even needing room, aka no borders and being as free as possible. You can also point to the rivalry between Law and Doflamingo. Whereas Law embraces freedom, Doflamingo has the power to constrict people's movements. And then you can especially see this with Birdcage, in which he locks people in and stops them from escaping. Also, is it a coincidence that the moment Rocinante died, Law also happened to be stuck and confined in a really tight space? I believe the most prominent evidence of Law's connection to freedom is how much he admires Corazon. Law wanting to free the world could be seen as him carrying on the will of Rocinante, as well as Law paying forward, Rocinante saving his life and freeing him. A perfect reason for Law to become a pirate and want the One Piece. I suspect that the Revolutionary Army and Sword also want the One Piece, but they need to do it as secretly as possible. So that requires someone to go to Laptop without the world government figuring out that it is the Marines that are actually after the One Piece. Sure, Drake could do it, but he is a known former member of the Marines. That would be suspicious. And it can't be someone from the Revolutionary, because the world government uses way too many resources via the Cipher Pole to spy on and keep tabs on the Revolutionary Army. Hence why it is important for them to be a distraction. It would be a lot more covert if they were to be supporting someone with no known ties to the world government, but also doesn't have too many of the world government's eyes on him. That's why Law is on a secret mission known as the One Piece Initiative, also known as OPI. Get it? Cause, well, you know. Anyway, with that, I finally conclude my full theory on how it is that Law could be involved with Sword and the Revolutionary Army. And that's all three of them. I really hope you liked it. I can tell you that third one was definitely my favorite. As petty as it is, I really like the whole tattoo relevance to, the world, where the tattoo kind of looks like the world surrounded by borders, but they're open. So it's like a world with open borders, a whole story told in just a single image. I also like, the bringing Flevens, for Robin, she has the will of O'Hara. Well, Law kind of has the will of Flevens, or at least according to my theory, he might be living on for his people to build a world where there's no borders and things are free. And speaking of no borders, I did say that, I think that Law's OPOP powers getting more powerful would be not the room getting bigger, but rather him being able to use the powers without having a room at all, which, as we've seen with his awakening, I was pretty much on point with that. But anyway, I really hope you enjoyed that. I have a huge video series in the works, so if you're new to this channel, check out in the description. There you'll find a playlist called Understanding Haki. I made 3 parts for that. I'm rebooting that theory. So I would check it out even though I'm rebooting it, because it's such an extensive theory. I mean, if you would take the watch time of the first time I did it, it's about 2 hours. The next time I next time I get at Understanding Haki, it's going to be multiple episodes. Each one might be around a half hour. So look forward to that. Thank you for checking out my channel. Subscribe, comment. I love to hear from people. I try to reply as much as I can. So stick around and I promise you'll be pleased.